Once upon a real life, I am joined by someone who has quietly and sometimes loudly been cheering on Australian girls and women for decades. Rebecca Sparrow is an author, columnist, speaker, grief survivor, teen advocate, and all-round truth teller. From best-selling books like Find Your Tribe and Ask Me Anything, to her honest and heartfelt talks in school halls and online spaces, Beck has made it her mission to help girls navigate when life gets messy, with heart, humour, and zero sugarcoating. In this conversation, we talk about what it means to grow up, to fall apart, to show up for your people, and to hold on to hope, even in the hardest of seasons. Whether you're 14 or 44, Beck's words feel like a wise older sister who just gets it. Welcome, Beck.
Oh, thank you, Belle. That was beautiful. Such a nice introduction.
Oh, lovely. Well, it's all true. That's you. That's you. I did a deep dive. Thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Can't wait to chat to you.
Oh, good. Now, we'll start with a little bit about you. So tell me a little bit about yourself and where you grew up.
Well, I grew up in where we are now, which is Brisbane's western suburbs. So I grew up in Chapel Hill, just with my parents and my older brother, and and just had a really sort of calm childhood. And I think I look back now and think what a gift that was. We didn't have a huge amount of money. We would have been like middle class, lower middle class. My dad sort of worked 2 jobs to put me through, my brother and I, through a private school. Neither of my parents had gone to university, so it was a very big deal for my parents that my brother and I would go to university. But yeah, really, we didn't have a lot of stuff. Most of our holidays were spent going camping and things like that. But I grew up in a really calm household with lots of rituals and traditions. And definitely when I think back on the childhood I had and how that has gone on to impact my life, I think that my dad played a huge role in what I've gone on to do, not just because he was a really great public speaker, but I was raised by him saying to me, you are amazing, and anything that you set your mind to, I think that you can do. And he used to say to me, which I know, Belle, you don't want to be saying to children, you can do anything, and because it's not necessarily true, right? But there's something about dads saying to daughters. I think there's research there of how powerful it is when my dad would say to me, my older brother was very, very, very smart and still is, and was on a scholarship and used to win national maths competitions. He was very smart, my brother. But my dad would say to me, if I had to hire one of you, he said, I'd hire you because you've got a business brain. And so he would say things to me all the time.
He was a cheerleader.
Yeah, he was. That made me feel like I was bulletproof, not in terms of taking risks, but yeah, he just instilled this great sense in me of you can do great things. And I see that in you and I believe in you. And I think there's something really powerful about that when you are so lucky. And I look back now at my childhood and think, the time I didn't feel lucky because we didn't have a lot of money, and a lot of the presents I got were secondhand. But I look back and think the gift of having this calm, stable childhood,
safe,
very present parents. My dad. It's nearly coming up to a year ago that my dad passed away. And he said to us that even though he knew he could have done more with his career, it was really important for him to be at home at 6 p.m. to spend time with us and to spend time with the family. And I think all of that investment has made a huge difference, to who I am.
It's made you the woman you are today.
Yeah, I do. I think that I am. And I'm very close to my mum. I don't want to say that my mum was my dad was the one probably sort of saying, you can do great things and believe in you. And my mum was a really soft place to fall. So I always knew they'd say to me, I did a lot of sort of crazy work things when I was in my 20s, but they would say, go and try it. If it doesn't work out, you can come home. You know, there's that safety net.
Yeah.
Can come home. Go take that job in Sydney or do that. You can always come home if it doesn't work out.
Wow.
That's such a great gift, I think, to give your children of that safety of knowing they have a soft place to fall. Yeah.
And I do that with my children, but I think my childhood growing up was the polar opposite of yours. I would have just loved your childhood.
Yeah. And my
God.
husband had the exact opposite.
Yes.
So my husband grew up in violence. He like literally has had the exact opposite in every way experience
So
of
does
me.
he like to follow suit with your dad and mum's way of raising children?
Yeah, he was very close to my dad because I think that, I'm not speaking out of turn,
yearned for it, probably.
Brad's talked about it before, but he did not have a blueprint, he felt, of how to be a good dad.
Yeah.
He didn't feel like he had a blueprint of how a family should operate in some ways. And so, and that's hard. And so in a way you're working off the opposite. You're going, I know what I don't want to do. And he was very, very close to my father as a role model. Yeah, but it's hard. So I think you can't take that for granted. I'm now so grateful because, of course, you know, I'm 53 now. I have so many friends. The number of my friends who've had some kind of trauma in their childhoods, and I think you know, I didn't do anything to deserve the childhood I had, so how lucky that I'm very grateful. Absolute blessing, because you get what you get, right? And so I try to be very appreciative of the fact that I had this amazing, very calm childhood that I think set me up for a lot of things. Yeah.
Your parents sound like incredible humans.
Yeah, they are. You know, nobody's parents are perfect,
No.
and
and that's saying, you know, we do what we can at the time and what we have with what we have, that kind of thing. But no, that sounds ideal.
Yeah, they were consistent and they showed up and they put time into us, and we had dinner at the, you know, dinner table every night. All of that stuff.
Yeah.
All of that.
Do you still do that now?
Not in the same way, no. Like yes,
we
my
always
kids
did. We had dinner, as in my family, have dinner at the table. But now that the girls are older, it's kind of like, does anyone want to eat in front of the TV and watch?
Yeah.
And then we watch whatever we watch.
Yeah. So I mean,
so we're still together.
Still. Well, that's the thing. It's still together.
Yeah.
So my husband's an obstetrician, so he's not usually home at dinner. So the three kids would sit at the table together, and I'm usually in the kitchen talking to them.
Yeah.
And because for years I made 2 different dinners and all of that stuff because you know,
because of his schedule. Yeah.
Yeah, neurodivergent children, you know, who only eat certain things and all of that.
Oh, it's fun.
Yeah. But yeah, look, and I think it's about. And I think time has changed, and I think people now with their kids, there's different schedules and 2 parents working, and I think it's more, I definitely know that the research is there about how important it is to be sitting at the dinner table together. But if you don't have that, maybe people are in a car together driving to school, or maybe you all go for a walk together. You know,
Or
I
go
think
for a coffee on the weekend, just some time to actually communicate.
So I think that
what's
parents
going on in your life.
shouldn't beat yourself up if you can't possibly have dinner together. Kids are getting home from sporting things at 9 o'clock at night sometimes with sporting practice.
That's where I find the slow cooker or the pressure cooker. I've got one that does both.
Yeah.
I use it about 4 nights a week.
Yeah. So I think that it's just a matter of what works for your family and when you can be together to be connecting with each other and checking in with everybody.
The check-in.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing.
That's the one.
Yes.
The check-in.
Yeah, so that you can notice when people are different. People are, their moods are different. And,
Yeah, different moods for sure you will pick up if we're all together. One's a bit more quiet. Or, you know.
Why aren't you talking about that friend anymore? And you don't seem to be wanting to go to work.
Oh gosh,
or
I
your
can't
job.
wait to get into the friendship thing with you. I've got so much to say. But the next thing I will ask you is, so your career, it has evolved. It's transitioned over the years from author, speaker, columnist, podcast host, and a teen mentor. So which role out of those feels like home?
It's interesting, Belle, because I think the heart of me is a writer, and writing is how I make sense of the world. And whether that's a book or whether I'm writing something on, my Facebook page or whatever, I think writing is it's literally how I make sense of things and work out how I feel about things. But I think the thing that gets me up in the morning is I have a great passion for talking to people about friendships, and that has now expanded. So not just kids, but loneliness. So for about the last 6 years, I've been really interested in the loneliness epidemic that's happening. And I think what sort of kicked it off is I read a book by Dr. Vivek Murthy, who used to be the Surgeon General of the United States under the Obama government. And he wrote a book called, I think it's called Together. I'd have to check the name of it. It's an amazing book. But when Obama brought him on to be the Surgeon General, and he said, I want you to go around the United States. And so this is, a long time ago now, when Obama was first in office. So he said, I want you to go around the United States and I want you to tell me what the biggest health crisis is. Is it, alcohol addiction? Is it obesity, prescription drugs?
Which you would think it would be prescription drugs.
Anxiety.
That's the one I would have.
Yeah. What is the number one, smoking, whatever. What is the number one health issue that we need
isolation and loneliness.
And it was loneliness. Wow. Because he realised that at the root of all of the other issues in society, including violence, including obesity, alcoholism, drug taking, is a feeling of disconnection and that nobody gets me and I'm not seen. Now, he saw that when was Obama first in office? 2008?
15 years or something.
2008. Yeah. So he noticed it then, and then we've just only seen that increase. And so
COVID didn't help.
No. The ball was already rolling before then, but COVID certainly didn't help. So I'm really interested I just think that something I say to teenagers all the time every week is the biggest decision we make in our lives is who we choose to hang around. And that's true whether you are 13 or 30 or 80. It's the people that you have on either side of you. Yeah. Are they cheering you on? Are they encouraging you? Are they, we talk a lot to teenagers about peer pressure, right? And usually we talk about it in a negative sense of, if all your friends were...
If they jumped off a cliff, would you jump off a cliff?
They were all vaping, are you just going to vape? Negative peer pressure. Yeah. But peer pressure can also be a positive thing. All of my friends are working really hard at uni. All of my friends are joining in the school clubs, all of my friends. And so there is that positive impact of hanging around people who help you be the best version of yourself.
Exactly.
And I think that is probably the biggest decision we make is who, including who you, if you're in a romantic partnership, who you partner with. And so that's my big passion, really. And I also, as you'll talk about later, I run a book club business. But again, the heart of the book club business actually isn't reading books, it's connection. Yeah. So I'm really passionate about connection, whether it's teenagers or adults. Yeah. How do we find community?
And it's
how do we find connection?
To have a think about when you have been in the presence of somebody and then you leave, what does your gut tell you?
Yes.
Do you get a good feeling? Are you on a high after leaving that person? Or are you a bit sunken?
Yes.
Are you thinking about the things you said? I think that's a really good signal for me to know if who I am with is a positive thing for me or not.
Yes. Are you feeling, it's the same rule that you'd have on social media maybe. The accounts I'm following, am I feeling inspired, uplifted? Yeah. Am I following,
do I feel good about this?
Authors and comedians and activists and people that make me go, wow, there's things I can do in the world. Or are you, are you with frenemies or are you with people who are just making you feel less than? And it is surprising how often we spend time with people who make us feel really bad about ourselves and how we choose.
So why do we do it? We all do it.
Yeah.
I don't do it anymore, but I'm 46 years old. So
Yeah.
I think I've come to the point in my life where I can now see it.
Yeah.
But I could never see it before.
Yeah. It's hard. I think sometimes there's loyalty to
And there are things you
heritage.
like about people.
Yeah.
You are drawn to somebody, but it's that.
Yeah. And I think sometimes with heritage friendships as well, it's complicated because
Yeah.
you've had
Past.
somebody in your life for a really long time, and then maybe that's changed, and maybe, you know, you don't have as much in common anymore, but you're trying to hang on to something.
And then there's the other side of that. If you do leave that heritage friendship, there's grief. It's real.
Yeah, it's very
that
difficult.
Grief is so harsh.
Yeah. And we don't, you know, we treat relationships like there's a hierarchy, and we put romantic relationships, then family, and then friendships down the bottom. And the first group of relationships that we get rid of when we're busy is friendships. But really, the truth is friendships should probably be at the top, because they are the ones that are usually truly are unconditional. You know, your friends are with you, seeing you through stuff because they want to be
You're
there.
giving me goosebumps. You can't
Yeah.
see them, but oh my goodness.
So I think that, you know, your friends are there with you for, not every friend has to be there for the long haul, but they are the people who will witness, you know, what's going on in your life and who are the stayers. And it's, you know, hopefully no strings attached. It is that unconditional love that you have with your friends, and that also aren't burdened by
Your drama.
Oh, yeah. And also, who's paid this bill and you didn't pick up any milk? And so it's free of that, and it's more of a showing up as a witness to each other's lives. And I think it's and then all of the material that's out there, books and webinars and self-help, well, that's all about fixing romantic relationships and fixing family relationships. And there's very little out there in the world about what to do to navigate friendship problems. Yeah.
And females, I've said this before and I'll say it again, men are not women. They're very, very different. And the way that we communicate and need communication
very
is
different.
Completely different.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's people's, you know, I think for most women, it's people's girlfriends who get them through.
I moved out of home when I was 16. So I completed year 11 and 12 out of home. And I worked 2 jobs through there. And my friends are the ones that got me through, and those friends are still with me today. And I tell you, hand on heart, right now, that I do not know where I would be without them. They were amazing, and they still to this day are incredible.
Look, the way that women show up for each other when you have got great girlfriends, and I think part of what I love doing is, and maybe we're all, you know, we can see in society over the decades, we've all, the culture is much more, we are all more self-involved, right? So even the industry of self-help books is I, me, you know, what's good for you and what's working for you.
And what do you think it should be?
I think what we have lost, and I think there's got to be a better balance, and I'm not saying people don't need to be thinking about what works for them and what their dreams are and all of that, but there's got to be a balance there, I think, of we before me. And part of that is, and I say this to teenagers all the time, if you want great friendships, it requires work, and you have to show up for people. You have to put the work in. It is not a matter. It is not a numbers game. It is not on Instagram that clicking crazy
a comment here and there.
Crazy
is not
love
a
heart.
friendship.
It's not a crazy love heart eyes on somebody's, you know, photo of themselves, and you're saying, "Oh my God, babe, you look amazing." Crazy love heart eyes. That takes 10 seconds of my time, right, to do that. And you can have 300 or 400, you know, friends on Instagram. If they don't know when your birthday is, if they don't call you because your dog died or your grandma is unwell or you missed out on a job or you got dumped or whatever it is, and they're not there for you, then what have you got?
Exactly.
And I sort of try and explain to them, friendship is actually effort, and it's often about times of inconveniencing ourselves in order to show up for other people. So when your friend says, I've got a basketball final on the weekend, you go. When they say they're trying out for a leadership position, or they've got a school play, or they sucked at their maths test, it is showing up for people and following up, and it's effort. Yeah. That's what it is. It's actually effort. And so when you realise that,
I love all of those analogies except birthday one. I am the worst. And because I
remembering birthdays.
Oh gosh, yeah. My children, absolutely. My husband, sure. My family, sure. My friends, I make it very clear to my friends, if you want me to remember your birthday, you need to tell me a week before.
Yes. And look, I've got...
and I love you.
Yeah. And I agree, because I've also got friends in my life definitely who are like, I cannot remember birthdays.
It's just something I can't do.
And that's fine. And because here's the thing, if you're showing up in other ways and your friends know you and they're like, oh, she never remembers birthdays, or they know to say, hey, it's my birthday next week, let's get together.
This is what I want.
Right?
Yes.
It doesn't, it shouldn't be a test of, is Belle going to remember my birthday?
That does happen.
Right.
That one of my, actually 2 times, 2 different girlfriends' husbands rang me and said, what's going on? No one's messaged so-and-so for the birthday. I went, oh my goodness. And then I put out a group chat and I said, listen to everybody, just so you know, I am not the person to be remembering all of your birthdays.
Yes.
Pick someone else in the group because I can't.
And I think also as an adult, you want to be able to say to people, if it's a big deal to you, if people saying happy birthday is a big deal to you, and that's fine if it is, then saying to people, hey, it's my birthday today, or hey, it's my birthday tomorrow, rather than doing it as a test.
That's right.
I think. And I think
Nothing good comes out of that test.
No. And I think, the other aspect of friendships is people are going to make mistakes. We're all flawed. We're all going to screw up from time to time. And understanding that and understanding that an apology in a friendship actually can make a friendship more robust.
It does.
Yeah. So I think that when it is safe to be able to apologise to someone in a friendship because you screwed up, this is what people don't realise, is that makes that friendship stronger, and there becomes this feeling of safety that we can be flawed, and, as long as you're not deliberately doing things and going, sorry, but, when you genuinely say, oh, I can't believe I left you off that, or I forgot this or whatever, it creates a sense of safety, because it's nothing drives me more wild than when people say friendship should be effortless and they shouldn't require work, and I'm like, what relationship on this planet requires no work?
No.
That's a myth.
It's not a relationship.
It's not. That is a myth. This idea you want
it's one of those fair weather friends.
Totally.
When things are going great.
Yep.
That's your bestie.
Yeah. So I think that what I say to people is, all most of us in our lives want is 2 or 3, if we're lucky, 2 or 3 robust, strong, ride or die, right, authentic, trusted friendships. You're only ever going to have maybe 2 or 3, if you're lucky, of those people that are just there for you. You could be friendly with lots of people, but that small group of women that are there for you, that I was watching something from I think he's English, I was going to say American, but I think he's English, Simon Sinek, and he was saying the real mark of a great friendship, he said, we always think it's that if your life's going pear-shaped, they're the people you can call, and he said, we always think that's a sign of a great friend, that if I lost my job or my marriage imploded or whatever, I could ring that friend. But he said, no. He said, it's an even smaller number of people that you can ring when you've got good news.
Ooh. Wow.
He said, who can you ring when you've had a win?
Wow.
And he said that are genuinely...
That tells me everybody really wants to hear people's things that are not going great in their life. But who can I tell when things are going really well?
So if you in 6 months or a year and you were getting a podcast award or something, and you think, who would actually...
Who am I going to call?
Be really, really genuinely happy for me?
I'll call my brother.
Yeah. But isn't that interesting?
Very
I thought,
interesting.
that's really interesting.
Yeah, I never thought of that ever. And years ago, I read this fantastic book. It's this tiny little book. It's by an actress, Karen Armstrong. She's an Aussie actress. But she put out this little book, and it's called The Circles. And I use it all the time. I don't know where it is, so I don't physically touch the book.
Yeah.
But the lesson that I learn in there is you've got 3 circles. So you have a big circle, a medium circle, and then a little circle. And then your tightest, most trusted friends are in the centre. Then step out, you've got your next friendship circle, and then you've got your acquaintances.
Yeah.
But they're fluid. They're not fixed. So this one in the middle, something happens. They are now in this outer rim.
Yeah.
And they could even go to the
Yeah.
So it's completely transitional. And I just thought that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I kind of know when I'm with my friends, which circle are you in? I don't tell them.
But it's interesting as well because I think that sometimes, friendships are often based on situations, a circumstance in our lives, and they're certainly based on
what you've got in common as well.
They're strengthened by seeing each other a lot. So that's why, and it's something, I can't remember what it is. It's something like it takes 120 hours to build a really strong, 120 hours hanging out together to build a strong friendship, which is why when you work with someone, those friendships become tight really quickly because you're banking all these hours, right? Yeah. Rather than a mum that you might see for 1 hour every Saturday, that takes longer, right? But the work friends, you're spending 7 or 8 hours a day, right? But it's interesting. But then you sort of think, they're my closest friend. But then you change jobs, and it's not that the friendship wasn't real, but sometimes it's the circumstance that has brought you.
Lifetime.
And I think we get upset sometimes when, they sort of say every 7 years your friendships, cycle through, but it doesn't mean the friendship wasn't real. It's that friendship was really important to you at that period of time.
Yeah, you needed it then. And I'm just thinking about what you said before, and I would say, because I have a very large friendship network, but I would say there's probably 3, and like you say, max 4 of the people that I could bare my complete soul to.
That's it.
Without any fear of judgment.
Yeah. And that's what you want for everybody. And it's upsetting and I think distressing to read. Gosh, it's something like maybe 1 in 4 Australians is experiencing significant loneliness. There are a lot of, surveys that have been done more recently where way too many people are saying they wouldn't be able to name one friend that they have. I think it's not surprising to me, but
it's adults.
Yeah, that's adults. And then the demographic that has the highest rate of loneliness now are 18 to 25-year-olds, which it used to be older people, but 18 to 25-year-olds now have the highest rates of loneliness. So our kids...
Because you finish school, you don't know people at uni
at
the workplace.
And they haven't built their social muscle.
No.
Right? So you've got this generation who haven't really learnt a lot of social,
their tribe.
And social skills of, you've really got a generation of kids there who are scared to pick up the phone and scared to go into a shop and ask for something, some of them. So they haven't learnt those skills of small talk that, same with you, Belle. I went into a meeting in the, when I was in my 20s or 30s, there were no phones. You had to make small talk with people before the meeting started. How's your weekend? Or, what are you even up to? Or
I like your shoes.
Right?
Yeah.
But that was a muscle that you had to build, right? Of being able to even, I'm an introvert, even if it's excruciating, of being able to talk to people, right? And I think we have got a generation of kids who haven't built that social muscle. And so then with the lure of things being online and social media and less socialising and all of that.
And the busy that life is.
they're not, it's they're not making friends in the same way.
Yeah.
And that period of time in your life where you sort of think I look back on my years and it was like really social, 18 to 25 of uni and hanging out with friends or having your first job or.
So for someone, if they're listening, that is in that pocket, what would you suggest would be a good way for them to make friends? Because I'm just thinking to myself, when you're young, perhaps you're a teenager, you do have friends. Most people will have friends, but sometimes they're not the right friends, like you were saying before. Sometimes they're not going to be the long-term heritage friends. But in that 18 to 25-year-old pocket, what's a good way for somebody to reach out and make connection? Because likely they probably haven't started a family yet, because having children was a great way for me.
Yeah.
High school friends, again, back because of my life situation, that bonded me. So I was lucky in that respect. I had instant family that were friends. A lot of people don't. So what would you recommend? Well, your book club, straight up, I would say. Book club, any book club.
Yeah, so I would say is join something.
Yeah.
Right? That is my number one tip, is to join something. Join in, say yes. So what I would say is pick something that is something that you already love, right? So don't join something that you think is where
like
there's
netball,
lots of...
if you're not sporty, for instance.
If you're not sporty and you think, I better join, I'm going to join this run club, and it's not your thing, don't do it.
Yeah.
But whether you love, and schools are much better at this now because I have so many school clubs, but you will find in the community, particularly at uni, but you'll find clubs for things. So whether it is,
drama group.
Yeah. Community choirs, drama group, book clubs. Community gardens. There's, volunteering. There'd be something,
That's
right?
That's a good one. Volunteering's a great one.
Yeah. So you would lean in to the thing that you already love. Yeah. And the reason, look, touch footy, right? If and there are more sporting clubs now that are purely social and not competitive, particularly in that 18 to 25. So, even if you think I'm not that sporty, but okay.
I love a run around.
Yeah. So, okay, there's a really casual touch footy team near me who are looking for players. I'm going to go. There's a run in our area. There's like a beginners run club. Like there's all kinds of things.
Oh God, I couldn't. People love that thing, but
no,
running,
I wouldn't do it.
I'm not a runner.
I wouldn't do it. But but there would be something for everybody.
Yeah.
So the reason
even
I say
local libraries, you've got like I'm just going to throw Spanish out there, but Spanish classes, they have lots of different groups at libraries, Brisbane City Council libraries.
There's more and more. And you know what? We're only going to see this increase because governments are realising that loneliness is a huge problem and it is affecting people's health. So they're trying to do more activities, film clubs, all kinds of things. There's board game clubs happening. So there's everything. The reason I say join something like that rather than just randomly go to a one-off event is because when you join something and you are seeing people regularly over time, that is how you build up connection with people, because it can take a while. So if I know, every Thursday night I see Belle and I see some other people and I don't know you very well, but over time you become comfortable.
Familiar.
Right. And so, and then also you've got a shared talking point. You're in the club. If it's an absolute passionate interest of yours, your knowledge, and I say this especially for anyone who's neurodivergent, if your specialty topic is whatever, Harry Potter, chess, whatever. I mean, joining a trivia team, right, at a pub.
I love trivia.
Right?
Yeah.
But your knowledge is going to actually be really valued in that group. So if you love gardening and you join the local gardening group or bird watching or anything, they're going to appreciate what you're bringing. Yeah. And I just think that sense of showing up over time, every week there's a structure, is better than just thinking, maybe if we, today go and do laser tag, or we go and one-off things,
not enough. And something, I'm a bit of an advice giver to all of my children's friends and all of my friends' children. And something I say when they're starting a new school, which could be good for the listeners now that are wanting to start in a group that you're talking about, Beck, is my advice is look around first. Don't just dive in to the first friendship you see in that group. Look around, you know, and I say, you know, look at the quiet ones as well, not just the outgoing ones that come up to you. You know, don't just suddenly hear you're stuck with this friendship group.
I agree. And have, you know, look at the quality of your friendship radar.
Yeah.
Because I could spend an hour giving people tips on how to make friends and how to meet people. You know, often I say to adults and teenagers, put your interests on display. So I'll say, if you love Harry Potter, then have a Harry Potter bag tag on your school bag. Or if you love Taylor Swift, or if you love the Brisbane Broncos, or if you love whatever. And that helps you find your tribe. It helps you, other people who love that thing, will see it. Also gives people a talking point to say, like my 12-year-old loves playing Wordle. He has a Wordle shirt. So other people will come up to him whenever he wears it and go, I love Wordle as well. And, you know, so that's great. I can tell you a million tips on how to actually meet people.
Break the ice or dialogue, yeah.
Right. But if you don't have a great friendship radar, then I'm wasting my time, because I want you to be friends with people who are good for you. And so I often used to tell this story about my niece when she started high school, and she's long finished high school, but she started grade 7. None of her friends were going to her school. She's going to a massive high school, and of course I'm her aunt, and so I'd be like, Eloise, find your tribe. And so she was really big on hip hop dance. She was a very good dancer. And so she went to school and I said, you know, I'm always saying to her, listen for hooks, listen for people that you've got things in common with so you can start a conversation. She heard this other group of girls talking about hip hop dance and she's like, oh God, I love hip hop. They love hip hop dance. This is amazing. She starts talking to them. They agree. First day of high school, she's like, I cannot believe I found my tribe.
I hope the story ends well.
Arranges to meet them at lunch, right? We're all going to have lunch together. She's like, this is incredible. She sits down with them at lunchtime, and through that entire first lunch hour, this group of girls said something awful about every single person that walked past and said nasty comments. And so my niece, red flag went up and she was like, these are not my people.
She did the mental jazz hands goodbye.
Yeah. And so it's that thing of you want to find people who share your values, because if you have to betray who you are in order to fit in with a group, it's never going to end well.
No.
And so you want to, you know, if you don't like who you are when you're hanging out with your friends, and this goes for adults as well, if we don't like the version of ourselves when we're with that friend because we're gossiping, we're laughing about people behind their back, you know, then you sort of think, is that who I want to be? Is that the, you know, is that the friendship? And then you always feel yuck afterwards.
That's the feeling.
Right? You go like, well, that was actually awful.
Yeah.
I don't like who I was then, because actually we were saying some pretty, you know, we're being sarcastic and laughing at someone. And so I think you have to keep that in mind of what are you looking for in a friendship? And it comes back to that thing of like who you surround yourself with is who you become.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
That's the beacon. That's the message you're putting out there.
Yeah.
And so if your teenage self could gift themselves one of your books, which one?
I think the book that I would have wanted was the one Ask Me Anything, because that's where I collected all of these anonymous questions from 14-year-olds and answered them. And when I collected them, I thought, stupidly, oh, I bet they're all going to be about dating and relationships. And no, they weren't.
What was the...
They were about friendship.
Wow.
And that's because when you are a teenage girl...
You were just being told by all sorts of universal signals, this is your path.
Yeah.
This
it was really interesting. And you know, it was just, you think back to that age, but for young teenage girls, the great love of your life when you were 13 or 14 is your best friend, and the drama that is involved in friendship that we were just talking about, the pain of a friendship breakup, of your friends ghosting you, of people turning around and suddenly saying, not talking to you at school and you don't know why, and all of that. And so I think I would have wanted to read that book, because what I wanted girls or any kids who read it is to think, it's not just me, I'm not alone.
Not alone. I'm not
you know,
alone.
because you when you're going through something that's really hard, you think it's just you, and you can't imagine anyone else would be going through the humiliation of being, dumped. I mean, the number of times from Year 12 students I've heard that kids get all of a sudden are dumped from the schoolies booking, dumped from
100%.
like all the time.
Yes, and I will say one of my children was at school, and it was between grade 7 and grade 8. And when they arrived on the first day of grade 8 and went to sit at the normal table with the normal friendship group, they were told, we outgrew you over the holidays and we don't want you to sit with us anymore.
They're weapons. Like teenagers are weapons.
I am actually furious even thinking about it.
Yeah. The brutality of that.
The brutality. Yeah.
Like, and if that happened to me in my 50s, I'd be devastated.
Yeah.
Let alone when you are 13 or 14
Uh-huh.
of the humiliation and the shame.
And so, what then I did is I was furious and I held that in. And then I said, look, well, let's send a group chat out to different people that you like. So we did. I helped them write it, and then sent it out, and we got crickets.
Oh,
Yeah.
jeez.
And then a couple of messages back saying later, sorry, I can't make it. And then I said to my child, I said, do you know what? They're missing out. They are missing out. I was going to put on the best sleepover ever.
Yeah.
They're missing out.
Yeah.
But I had a child that I cradled in my lap and just...
Oh, the pain of that. The pain of that.
So I hate to say it's girls, but girls can be...
Oh, girls can be shocking.
Vicious.
Yeah, really vicious. Just the damage that can be done. And so
Ask Me Anything is beautiful because you're not alone. The children are not alone, and everybody has been through awful
definitely
to do with
and
friendships.
you will survive it.
And you do survive it.
Yeah, you do survive
You find your tribe.
Yeah, that's it.
So I know you love to read yourself and you have your own book club. Is there one particular book that you can think of that changed your life growing up?
Growing up.
So Babysitter's Club or Christopher Pike?
Yeah. I'm trying to think. Probably... the book that was given to me when I was in primary school, it was probably a tiny bit too old for me, but that I read over and over, was Little Women.
Oh, Little Women.
And I didn't have a sister, so I was obsessed with the March sisters and reading about them and imagining that story. And I used to read it and reread it. But of course, like I loved Judy Blume. Yes. That's who, Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret.
That's what I thought you were going to say. That's the one I thought you were going to.
Yeah. So I loved that growing up.
I read that in grade 8. I think our librarian read that to us.
Yeah. So there were books like, there's certainly way more books now for kids and teenagers than there ever were sort of in the 70s and 80s, I think. But, yeah, I think there's just something about, part of our ritual when I was growing up was going to the Indooroopilly Library, and that was what we did. Is we, as a family, we didn't buy the books. We would go to the library, and so we were always reading and all of that. But I'd say those two books were probably two of the books
that were the ones that got you.
Most,
and what about as an adult?
As an adult, I would say certainly one of the books that helped me the most is after I lost my daughter Georgie, after my daughter Georgie was stillborn, and I was at home. I'd only just gotten out of hospital, and so I would have been at home, and maybe I must have had one of my first trips out to the shops or something. It was terrible at the time because when you've lost a child and had a stillbirth, another ripple effect of the trauma is that everywhere you go, people say, "Where's the baby?" And so you have to keep having these conversations with people. And it's awful because they feel awful when you say to them, "The baby died." Like there's no winner that comes out of that conversation at all. But I do remember picking up a book in a bookstore that was called 365 Thank Yous. And I can't think of the author's name. It's something Kralik, which is with a K. Anyway, it was about this. It was really a memoir more than a novel. I don't know why I picked it up because it was really obscure. It was some obscure book. And I read it. I can remember sitting in bed when I was still recovering at home and just reading every line of it. And it was about this man who was a lawyer in America whose business was failing. He'd lost a lot of money. His marriage had broken up. He had a bad relationship with his children. And he kind of had an epiphany one night. I feel like it was like a New Year's Eve or something like that. And he must have been in his 50s, if not older. And he just made this decision that every day he was going to write a thank you letter to somebody.
He's going to be grateful.
Yeah, and he said, made it a thing that he had to physically write a thank you letter, even if it was one line. He had to write a thank you letter to somebody every day for a year, and it was how profoundly his life changed from doing that. And I don't know what it was. And, you know, there were other books that I read at that time as well that saved me. But there was something about that book which I think gave me, in a weird way, hope. And I think it was that, and also about a week after I got out of hospital, because I'd also had complete kidney failure when my daughter died. And I came out of hospital, and the other thing, and this would be very jarring for some people, but my mum knows me very, very well, and she came around to my house and she bought me a gratitude journal, which was probably in many ways the most powerful book somebody gave me during that period of time. She gave me a gratitude journal. And so every day I would try and write something because I needed something to help me notice the small moments of good that
Not
still
everything
existed.
is the darkness you feel.
Yeah, because it just, you know, I could feel the waves of grief trying to drag me under. And I think having this gratitude journal to sort of help me notice, you know, I call them, you know, the sparkles of your day, just the tiniest moment, whether it was a nurse had sat on my bed in the hospital and was, you know, talking to me, or I've received a beautiful card, whatever it was, just the smallest things that helped me have hope that the world wasn't going to be bleak, you know, and that there was still magic to be found. And in fact, I can remember weirdly, again, maybe it was about 2 weeks after Georgie died, sitting in the lounge room with my husband, and I was a newspaper columnist at the time, and, you know, had made the mistake of, during my weekly column, writing about the fact that I was pregnant. So then I had to tell all the readers. Yeah. So then I had to break the news to all the readers that my baby had died. You know, it was just the ripple effect of, you go through this trauma, but then it is the having to brief everyone about it and manage everyone's emotions. Anyway. And all of these readers sent letters and cards to me, and so that were then forwarded on to me. And I remember saying, and then of course all of our friends and family who just, you know, in fact, I can remember, Belle, when they wheeled me into surgery. So we knew Georgie had died before I delivered her. So I had stopped feeling movements.
How old was she?
I was 36 weeks pregnant.
She was... Oh.
Yeah, she was fully cooked. She was ready to go. And so I think I delivered her at 36 and a half weeks. And but I can remember being wheeled into theatre to deliver her, and I can remember this feeling of feeling like 1,000 arms were holding me up. And I just really remember saying to Brad at that time, and then a few weeks later when I was getting all this mail, and I said, "We're so lucky, Brad. We're so lucky. Look at all these people who love us." And so, and this is the look. Life is brutal, and you're gonna get dealt a certain hand of cards, but it's like the message of that movie Inside Out. So often where there's pain, what sits alongside it is
joy or beauty.
Beauty or joy. And, and those hardest moments are often twinned with it, remarkable moments of connection and love. And
it's the story of your life as well.
Yeah.
It writes the story.
Yeah. And I don't think anybody gets through this life unscathed.
No.
I think, at some point life is going to bring you to your knees, and it's just about having the tools, I guess, and the people around you to get back up and think, I can keep going.
So Beck, social media. Let's just touch on social media for a moment. What do you think the impact on social media for our young girls is, and what is their hope? What gives you hope?
I definitely think there's an impact, and I think that we still don't know the full impact of what, the impact social media has had on our girls. And I think that one of my biggest concerns with it is that it feels like it indexes likes to your self-worth, that that it drives this culture of compare and despair. And no, but it was hard enough, Belle, in the 80s, going to school and maybe finding out that there'd been a party on the weekend that I hadn't been invited to. But now we know that girls in particular who can be, girls' friendships can be, I don't want to be so negative, they can be amazing and nourishing and brilliant. But they can also be very destructive, and girls can be really
Isolated.
Yeah, and they can be very manipulative.
Yes.
And to see girls, posting on social media, deliberately tagging in friends that weren't invited to a party, cutting people out of photos, like it's used as a tool. Social media. Yeah, they're using it as a tool to hurt each other deliberately. It's even little things of deliberately posting unattractive photos of each other. And there were 2 year 8 girls, I think it was, at a girls' school not long ago, who put up a poll. I can't remember if it was on Instagram or Snapchat, but just said, who do you think is the ugliest girl in our grade? Well, people were tagging in girls. It took these 2 year 8 girls, it probably took them maybe half an hour or more to realise this was a bad idea. But by that time, the damage is done, because somebody has been tagged repeatedly in that. That's just one tiny example of what goes on. So it does worry me about that. And I think that...
So self-worth, friendship issues.
Yeah, and using it as
things...
a tool, using it as yet another tool, particularly after hours. You want to be able to come home from school and have a break and be safe, and it's just another way for people to be able to get to you. So I have a lot of concerns about it.
So what about in the next 6 months? I know that Australia are bringing in a minimum age on social media. Do you have good high hopes for this?
I do.
That it will work?
Yeah, I do, because I think that what's interesting is that what parents want is to be able to say, the government says you're not allowed to do it.
Yeah, I want that.
Yeah.
I actually really want that.
Yeah. So I think that...
I love that with e-scooters. I love that with e-bikes. Yeah. I want that with social media.
So to be able to say, the government says you're not allowed to have it. Yeah. And I think that the more kids and parents who, because the big fear has always been no parent wants their child to be the only one who doesn't have something, right? Which I understand. So the more there are who don't have a smartphone yet or don't have social media, the easier it is to feel connected and to still have friends. But it's hard. This is why there's now parents bringing in landline phones back into their houses.
Really?
So, yes.
Really?
Yes. And in fact, I'm thinking of bringing a land. Yeah, because we're trying to delay with a lot of this stuff. Because once you give in and hand stuff over, it is very hard to pull it back.
To rein it back.
It really is. Yeah. And so you want to go really slowly, if you can, with handing all of this stuff over, because once you whether it's a smartphone, whether they're in just iPads, even a messenger group, whatever it is, you have to turn your parenting up to an 11. And if you are like most parents who are already overwhelmed and at the end of their tether, right, and you don't have the headspace, the bandwidth to also be checking what they're doing. I mean, you speak to any school principal, school counsellor, and they will tell you that when they, Monday mornings are pretty hectic for deputy principals around the country, right? Because it is Monday mornings when they have all the emails of what happened on the weekends. That parent, this happened and they tagged this and they were sending my child. And then the schools call the parents of, let's say, the kids who've been doing the bullying. And what's the number one thing that these parents say? I had no idea. I had no idea. Here are the screenshots of what your child has been sending to other people. Here's what your child was sharing in class. I had no idea. And that's the thing that I would say to people is that once we hand stuff over, our job becomes a lot harder to monitor it. And maybe you're up for that job, maybe you're not, but it's certainly something to keep in mind with all of this tech. And that the tech is very, very, very easy to use. They've made it really easy to use. But just because it's easy to use doesn't mean our kids have the life experience to see around corners
and to deal
and to make the right choices. And so we see that all the time. We see that all the time of there was a school last year where you had 12-year-old girls setting up fake accounts and catfishing. So if people don't know what catfishing is pretending to be another young person, whether it's a teenage boy, and convincing other girls, befriending them and convincing them to send nude photos or doing that to each other. And they're children. They do not understand how to use all of this technology. No. And this is what frustrates me, every expert around the world pretty much is saying delay. They're saying don't give it to them. They're blowing up their lives. It's causing all of these issues. It's linked to rising rates of depression and loneliness. There was just something that came out the other day that was talking about the factors behind suicide, and one of them was social media. And so all of the experts are saying, please delay. And what are we saying as parents? My child's in grade 6. Do you think it's okay if they have Snapchat? It's like we don't want to hear it. Yeah. And I think we are a generation of parents who are uncomfortable with our children being uncomfortable. Yeah. And so the moment our kids are like...
I would agree.
Yep. The moment... And I get it. It's and in fact, I was... who was I with? I was with Sam Jokul, who created the documentary Scene, which is amazing. I'd recommend people to see it.
What's it on?
I don't know how you can watch it now. She had it in theatres, but you may now be able to download it. It's called Scene the Documentary, and it is about how we were all parented has affected our parenting. Mm-hmm. It's really good. But she said, we are a generation of parents who do not know how to cope with all of the big feelings coming from our children, because most of us were raised with, you don't talk about your feelings. We're not listening to,
Yeah.
No,
Or
my
why?
parents never sat with me in the 80s and said, how are you feeling?
And then also, if you ask for something and they say no, and you say why, and they don't have to answer you.
Yeah.
What was the saying that the parents would say back? Because I said so.
Yeah, yeah. And so it's really interesting, and we've got this generation of kids who have been taught to be literate about their feelings, emotional literacy. So you've actually got all of these kids who've gone through school talking about emotions and feelings, and you have a generation of parents who we were not taught any of that stuff. And so our kids come at us with these big feelings, and we're like, what? As I said, I can't imagine in the 80s my parents ever sitting down with me going, how are you feeling about your grades? Yeah. And there wasn't never a discussion that, it was a different time in parenting. And I'm certainly not saying it was better. It was different. Yeah. And so I think that we are quite uncomfortable with the big emotions that come at us from our kids.
Well, saying no feels to me like it's getting harder and harder.
Yeah.
Because I have 3 children.
Yeah.
So the youngest one kind of just gets to sail through because
it's
older.
hard. Yeah.
And not that we're at any end of tether, but it kind of doesn't seem as, I'm not talking about social media, I'm talking about saying yes and no. It kind of seems less of a hard basket just to give in. So I can see how easy it is. But with social media, I've always been really mindful because when my girls were younger, it was newer.
Yeah, of course.
So it was something that they all did pretty quickly. But I always had the rule, particularly with the younger one, who's now an adult, but she had to send me the photo she was going to post and send me the caption, and I would approve it. And that was until she was about 16. And
it's and look, we're this generation of parents, we've got no elders to tell us. Yeah. There's no one ahead of us in this stuff that can say, well, this is how you should be handling it as a parent. We've got nothing.
No.
We're all flying blind. And all of a sudden, as a parent now, I have to be a tech expert. Yeah. I'm not good at tech at the best of times. Yeah. So now I have to work out constantly settings on Minecraft or YouTube and what
passwords, but also
who can see you
checking the content of the private messages. That was the big one. Yeah. That was the really big one. And I was happy that she allowed me to do that for so long because sometimes I would see friendship back and forward between them and I'd just say, hey, what do you think about this? Like, you took what she said in a really negative way, but perhaps it wasn't, just kind of teaching her that texting is difficult. To read what's behind a text, very difficult.
It's very difficult. And this is all stuff that we have to learn and kids.
So I like that. Just wait and delay.
Oh, delay.
That's the message.
Absolutely. And just remember, when we hand stuff over to kids, it doesn't have to be all at once. You can start with a dumb phone, right? You can start with a dumb phone, or you can start with a locked down smartphone that just does texting. Do you know what I mean? You can go slowly. You don't have to be...
Or you can have Snapchat with grandma only.
Right. Whatever it is.
You and grandma can snap.
Yeah. So it's whatever, but you don't have to...
Open the floodgates.
Hand over the keys to the car and just say go for it. Yeah. Because I think... And then we do that and then we get upset with our children when they make mistakes. Of course they're going to make mistakes. Yeah. Adults are making mistakes on social media all the time.
Oh, you just see it, don't you?
Yeah. So, of course, our kids are going to make mistakes. Yeah. So, it's, it's part of it. So
Beck, I want to thank you for all you do. I know that you have been a source of strength for a lot of women, a lot of mums, and a lot of teenage girls. I just think what you do is incredible. And please, for the love of all things holy, continue this path because I've watched you for a good 10 years throughout your career. And this is fantastic.
Oh, thank you. Thanks, Belle.
If I could ask you one.
Yes.
Actually, it's 2. And they're going to be short, my love.
Okay.
It's really short.
Okay.
Number 1, if you had a billboard outside every high school in the country, what does it say?
What would I have that billboard say? I think I'd have it double-sided. Yeah. So I'd have one side which says you are enough.
Oh.
And the other side, I would say, would I have it say join in, or would I have it say you are who you hang out with?
Well, they're both beautiful. I'd go with those two. You are who you hang out with. You are enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Let's get that done.
Yeah.
Every school.
Yeah.
Okay, finally, this is the question
Yes.
I ask all of my guests who come on this podcast. I'm going to throw you a curveball.
Okay.
Beck, have you ever seen a ghost or a UFO?
I haven't seen a UFO. Have I seen a ghost?
Only one of my guests has.
Okay. Wow.
Only one out of 13 now.
Have I seen a ghost?
I mean, about 7 of them have with ghosts.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know. Well, I feel like one time in a meditation I saw my daughter Georgie in my mind's eye. So I did see that. But my dad passed away a year ago next week, and my mum has seen him at least 5 times.
In the physical body?
Yeah.
Or a shadow?
Well, I don't know, but she has seen him so many times, and like particularly in the first few months, like standing in the doorway, and he'd be different ages when she'd see him, and favourite outfits, and yeah.
That is gorgeous.
Yeah.
That is beautiful.
And I'm like, I wish I'd see my dad.
I want to see my dad.
Yeah, but I know she and I both feel he's in the house
He's there.
looking after her. Yeah, so she's seen that, seen dad, but I don't know if I definitely believe in all of that stuff, but I think the only thing I've had is I felt like I saw
Your daughter.
I saw Georgie in like a meditation that I did.
I've never seen a ghost, but all 3 of my children have had the exact same experience.
Wow.
Yeah. Crazy. Which is why I asked the question.
Yeah.
Because if all 3 of my children are independently telling me the same thing.
Yeah. That is interesting.
I believe it.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. But the UFO, I just want someone, like, I've met one person who's seen one.
Yeah.
I met
UFO,
one at
no, I
work
haven't.
who'd seen one, but I didn't get her details. And that was at Wacol, and it was huge, and it landed above her home.
Wow.
Back in the 60s, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. She came in to me at council, had to tell somebody before she passed away because she said the government needs to know.
Wow. Look, I think the thing is, whatever people believe, you cannot possibly think we are on this planet, in this universe, this multiple universe, as if we know what's out there.
And as if our opinion beats what they saw.
Yeah, like nobody knows what is beyond. We just don't. And to think that we are the only little planet that's got some kind of life.
Biology.
Right? Yeah. Like, so you've just, I think being open-minded, I try and respect all belief systems.
Yes.
But to be open to thinking there's got to be.
I agree.
Thank
you, Beck.
Thank you, Val.
Thank you so much.